We had a discussion with all whether we need a translator or not.
Мы тут советовались, нужен ли перевод в этой замечательной большой аудитории.
Hands up, who understand?
Поднимите руки, кто понимает по-английски и кому не нужен перевод. So you see?
Немножко надо. We actually came here from Dонецк. Well, Olga and Kostya came from Dонецк.
Мы приехали из Донецка, на самом деле я и Костя приехали из Донецка.
My name is Chris. I am an architect and I work.
Мне тяжело тогда догадаться, какая часть требует минимального перевода. They don't need translation.
Okay, so my name is Chris. I'm an architect and we work for a foundation called ИЗОЛЯЦИЯ, which is now almost 3.5 years old platform for cultural initiatives in the city of Donetsk. For those of you who don't know Donetsk, you can see it on the map of Ukraine, but I think most of you know Donetsk. It's a very industrial city, and if you look at the map of the city, what we try to explain here is sort of the zoning of the city. As you can see, the green spaces represent the public parks, and there's not that many of them, only 3. And the blue represents the water. And the dark spot in the middle is actually the biggest industrial factory we have in the city, which is called DMZ, which produces steel. And that orange dot right there is ИЗОЛЯЦИЯ, and that's where we are located. So we're sort of almost in the middle of all of these items. And that red line going through is actually the only public transport that serves ИЗОЛЯЦИЯ in the face of this bus number 20, which runs almost every half an hour.
Да, у нас один автобус, это вот очень важный момент, который ходит официально раз в полчаса, неофициально по-настоящему раз в час, раз в полтора часа.
So we have this problem of being detached from the city in a way, although we are part of the city. Donetsk is a major industrial center, and I'm not going to go into this. I think you all know what Donetsk is. What strikes me when I first came to the city was the immense contrasts between sort of the classes of people, between the rich, the middle class, and the poor, and of course the industrial landscape. No translation, okay.
Вам нужен перевод, потому что все кивают, что все понимают.
Okay, great.
Для твоей поддержки.
Okay. And this actually, I was coming here and I was thinking, what strikes me from this contrast was, for example, I don't know if I'm a car enthusiast, so recently this new Range Rover came out, which is a very expensive car. And the first time I saw it was in Donetsk, which was a surprise to me, you know. This is how the city looks from above. It's extremely industrial, and you all probably know that. And this describes sort of the streetscape that we often see throughout the city, and it's very, how to say, in a way, it's crazy how some of the young people spend their days on the streets, and how there is no social care and no public space for these people to go to. And this looks at the territory of ИЗОЛЯЦИЯ, which is located, as you saw on the map, on the southeast side of the city. And we're a big territory, which used to be the old industrial plant that used to produce insulation in the Soviet times. And then when the Soviet Union collapsed, it just stayed reluctant for almost 20 years. And at the heart of it, we have this terracon. And I think you all know what are terracons. They're these piles of slag heap, which are left over from the mining industry. And once you climb up to the terracon, this amazing panorama opens up of the city, and especially the city of Donetsk. And there in the background you can see the industrial steel plant, and then the new development, the high-rise of the city. And these are sort of forgotten spaces. Terracons are used by people, but they're not really recognized, in my opinion. And they could be used more and more. So our idea is to do something with the terracons as well. And this refers to the 3 years back when we first arrived at the site, when everything was sort of left as it was. It looked like people stopped work and just got out of the plant. They left everything behind them, their clothes, their tools, whatsoever. And these are just some images that show the first sort of shots of what the plant used to look like. It actually started quite small, and it grew out and captured more and more buildings. New buildings were built, new workshops were built. some of the spaces are actually very similar to what we see here at the GOGOLFest as well. And this talks about the history, and basically ИЗОЛЯЦИЯ used to be one of the biggest producers of insulation in the Soviet period. They used to produce insulation for all kinds of industries, the submarines, the spacecrafts, the industry itself, insulating pipes and etc. But the funny thing is that we used to produce insulation, but none of our buildings are insulated because gas was so cheap. And actually gas and the collapse of the Soviet Union actually made the plant not economically sustainable anymore because prices of gas went up and it wasn't efficient to produce insulation anymore.
Да, интересно, что несмотря на то, что завод производил изоляцию, все это время сами здания на территории завода не изолированы. Потому что в то время, когда работал завод, газ был настолько дешевым, что это не было необходимым, а потом, когда газ подорожал, и производство изоляции стало бессмысленным из-за цены на газ.
И можно вопрос, а в какой именно части города это находится? Где?
Это не центр города, это Буденновский район, так скажем, депрессивный район Донецка. Поэтому мы говорим, что мы находимся, что мы часть города, но в то же время находимся в изоляции от города.
Okay, so 3.5 years ago, the founder of this cultural platform realized that she wants to do something with this territory that she inhabited from her father. And the idea came to turn this into a cultural center. And it all started actually with a small project with the idea that we need a gallery space where to exhibit art. And then it grew into a much bigger thing. And these show just some of the works that have been carried out for the past 2 and 3 years. And the key to our cultural program are the residency programs, where we actually invite artists from all over the world to come live in Donetsk for about a month and produce artworks then for the next year that are presented into an exhibition. And these pictures just describe some of the social involvement that we've had in the past years. And this is the residency program. Actually, the first one that was very successful was with Boris Mikhailov, who is a very famous Ukrainian photographer. He's exhibited in MoMA, in Tate, all over the world. And he did the residency program. He was the curator of the photography residency.
Он единственный на территории бывшего Советского Союза обладатель премии Handelsblatt. Это такая Оскар социальной фотографии.
And these are just some shots of people. They traveled around. They didn't only stay in Donetsk. They went out into the district, into the oblast. We had workshops, actually live picture making. And these are just some of the shots of the outcome of. This was actually an artist that did these massive banners of just the life that she saw in the city. This was an Italian artist that described sort of the architecture from a bird's eye point of view. And then this year we had a residency program called Turborealism, which was all about moving image and digital art. And it involved a lot sort of DIY making and performances as well. And then actually the first big project we had was 2 years ago with a Chinese artist called Tsai Gaotian, which was a site-specific project. But now site-specific is actually an old term. Now a trendy word is to say site-responsive. So in a way, this was also site-responsive. And he decided to do a work about the miners because the region is as you know, is an old mining region. And we managed to get him into the mines, the coal mine and the salt mine. And what we did, we produced 18 and 9, so 18 works of coal miners and 19 works of salt miners. And he works a lot with explosion with gunpowder. So these portraits were drawn by local artists. Then they were cut out, stenciled, and the whole thing was exploded. And there in the background you can see the outcome, which is a pure drawing made by gunpowder. And then we filled one of these gallery spaces, we filled with 100 tons of coal and 100 tons of salt, which was technically a very hard exercise as well. And then another piece he did was called these, I forgot the name, Olga.
Nursery rhymes.
Nursery rhymes, where he used these coal wagons that actually rotated or swung, and they had projections on the screens, but a very sort of industrial, very emotional work about the regime and about the previous years, about the history.
Это шахтные вагонетки, они выстроены в ряд таким поездом, и каждая из них покачивается как колыбельная. И каждая вагонетка посвящена отдельному периоду в жизни шахтера. И хроника этого периода транслируется на эти пологи. От рождения до последней, которая символизирует смерть, и на ней, на пологе, хроника шахтерских трагедий, аварий на шахтах.
And then last year we had a very large exhibition with six big artists, and it was through a gallery in Italy, and it was called Where's the Time? And they all came over for a site visit in winter. We climbed the Terracon. They all got inspired. Daniel Gorean and Leandro Ehrlich, Pascal, and they created works that were also sort of site responsive. So Daniel Gorean worked with these old industrial cages, and he brought color and life into them. And then Pascal decided to build this massive lipstick on top of a 40-meter chimney, which was a very hard technical exercise. That crane actually is one of the biggest cranes that we could get in Dонецк. And Leandro Ehrlich did this very interesting piece with mirrors, where he plays with illusion and how reality works. And this is the outcome that you get: people falling off the building, people climbing out of the windows, etc., etc. So this is the illusion that you get, that the building is actually standing up, whilst it's actually laying down flat on the floor. This was a video piece by Hans of the Peck.
На второе место аэропорт Прокофьева, который брался в Донецке к евро. И на третьем месте вот помада Паскаля.
Although it looks more like a rocket, because it was built by industrial workers, not by sculptors.